The room was cold, quiet, and filled with a strange blue light. The human man slowly opened his eyes, confused and dizzy. He was lying inside a metal pod, something like a capsule. His body felt weak, his throat dry, and his memory broken. He tried to sit up, but the pod opened with a soft hiss before he could. Bright shapes moved around him, tall figures with smooth skin, long limbs and glowing eyes. At first, he thought he was dreaming, but then one of the figures stepped forward, reached into the pod, and gently touched his face. "Is he awake?" A voice whispered, high and musical. "He's beautiful," another voice said from behind. "Strong shoulders, wide chest." "Perfect," a third voice giggled softly. The man blinked, his heart pounding, his mind still trying to understand what was going on. He looked around, and that's when he saw them clearly. They weren't human, at least not fully. They were alien women, each different in color, shape, and design. One had silver hair like mist, another had small horns on her forehead, and one had soft fur covering her arms. But all of them had one thing in common. They were staring at him like he was the last treasure in the universe. One of the aliens leaned down and smiled. "Don't be afraid, human," she said kindly. "You are safe now, and you are ours." "Ours?" the man said weakly, his voice dry and rough. "Yes," another alien said, stepping forward. "You belong to us now." He sat up slowly, muscles aching. "Where am I?" he asked, still dizzy. "You are on Narellan Prime," the silver-haired one replied, "far from your Earth. You were found in an old Earth ship, drifting near a dead moon," another said. "We saved you. We brought you here, and we will take care of you," the one with horns added. The man tried to stand, but his legs gave out. The alien girls quickly caught him, soft hands supporting his body. They carried him like he weighed nothing. They brought him into a large round chamber, with glowing lights and warm air. He was placed gently on a soft bed covered in white fur. The aliens surrounded him again, some kneeling, some sitting, but all watching him closely. He felt like an animal at a zoo, or a king with no power. "What do you want from me?" he asked slowly. The girls looked at each other, then at him. "You are the only fertile male we've seen in many years," one of them said. "There was a disease long ago," another added. "It made most males sterile, useless. But your kind humans were always strong, always rare," said the girl with the glowing tattoos. "You are special," whispered another, brushing his arm softly. The man's name was Ela, but no one asked it. They simply called him human. The male, or the chosen. He felt confused, nervous, and a little afraid. But he couldn't ignore something else deep inside: curiosity, maybe even excitement. One girl stepped forward, taller than the others, with dark purple skin and sharp golden eyes. She spoke slowly, clearly, like a leader. "I am Commander Lyra," she said, "and you are under my protection. No one will harm you, but you must obey the rules here." "What rules?" Ailey asked, voice trembling. "You will eat well, sleep well, and stay healthy," she said. "And when the time comes, you will help us rebuild our future." Eli swallowed hard. "Rebuild? How?" he asked, though deep down he already knew the answer. "You will give us children," one girl said shyly, her hands on her stomach. "You will become the father of our new generation," another whispered, leaning close. Eli's heart raced. He was just a simple cargo pilot from Earth. How did he end up in a place like this, surrounded by glowing alien women, all wanting him for one reason? He looked around the room. The women weren't just beautiful. They were powerful, serious, and determined. Some smiled gently, others studied him like scientists. He realized they were not playing games. This was real. He tried to speak again, but the words didn't come. His eyes met Lyra's, and she gave a small nod. "Rest now, human," she said. "Tomorrow, we begin your new life." And with that, the lights in the room dimmed. The alien women stayed nearby, some humming, others sleeping lightly, but their eyes never left him. They watched him like he was the last male alive. and the only hope for their future. Eli lay there, unable to sleep. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he was sure of one thing: his life was no longer his own. It belonged to them now, and whatever they wanted, they would take. Eli woke up to a loud thud, followed by something crashing. He blinked his eyes, still half asleep, and heard shouting. Alien voices echoed through the chamber, sharp and angry. He sat up slowly, the fur blanket sliding off his body. 2 alien girls were fighting, their bodies locked, claws out, hair flying. One had blue scales down her arms. The other had glowing red eyes. They were screaming in a language Eli couldn't understand, but the rage in their tone was clear. The other women were trying to pull them apart, but no one dared touch them directly. Finally, the tall one with purple skin, Commander Lyra, stepped in, her voice like thunder. "Enough!" she shouted, and even the walls seemed to shake. The 2 girls froze, their breathing heavy, eyes still burning with hate. Lyra turned to Eli, then back to the girls. "You will not fight over him like animals," she warned. "He is not a toy. He is our future." Eli stood up carefully, unsure if he should say something. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice dry. One of the calmer aliens stepped forward and answered quietly. "They were arguing about who gets to sleep beside you tonight." Eli's eyes widened. "What?" he asked, shocked. The girl looked away shyly, her cheeks glowing a soft green. "It is tradition to bond during rest, to strengthen the connection," she whispered. "Some think they deserve it more than others." Before Eli could respond, the air shifted, and a shadow moved near the chambers. Exit. Someone had entered without making a sound. A tall alien girl with dark gray skin and piercing silver eyes stepped out of the shadows. She was wrapped in a black cloak and moved like smoke. Her presence made everyone silent. Even Lyra watched her carefully. She walked slowly toward Eli, her eyes locked on his face. When she stopped just a few steps away, the temperature in the room felt colder. Without saying a word, she reached out and touched his chest. Her fingers were cold, but her gaze burned. "I am Nyx," she said softly, "and I choose you." Her voice was like a whisper inside Eli's head, not loud, not forceful, but impossible to ignore. Lyra stepped forward, her body tense. "You can't just claim him, Nyx," she warned. "He belongs to all of us, not just one." Nyx didn't move, didn't blink. "I do not care about rules," she said. "I care about results." Then she turned and walked away, silent once more, disappearing down a dark hallway. The others stared after her, some in fear, some in anger. Eli felt a strange chill run down his spine. Later, as the light dimmed and it was time to rest, Lyra spoke privately with Eli. "You must be careful around her," she said. "Nyx is not like the others. She doesn't show emotions. But she's powerful and very old. She has never chosen anyone before. Not in 100 years." Eli sat in silence, trying to understand what all this meant. "Why is everyone so intense?" he asked finally. Lyra gave a tired sigh. "Because we are desperate," she said. "Our world is dying slowly. You are the first sign of hope in generations. Some want love, some want power, but all of them want something from you." Eli leaned back against the soft wall, his head full of thoughts. He had come from a life of space deliveries and cheap coffee. Now he was the center of a strange, dangerous world filled with beautiful, powerful alien women. They saw him as a symbol, a treasure, maybe even a weapon. Suddenly, someone tapped gently at the side of his chamber. It was a young alien girl with bright green eyes and short hair. She held a glowing fruit in her hands and smiled nervously. "I brought this for you," she said softly. Eli took it, feeling the warmth through his fingers. "Thanks," he said, surprised by her kindness. Before he could ask her name, another girl appeared, then another. Each had something small to offer: food, fabric, handmade gifts. They lined up silently, each one trying to show care in their own way. It was no longer just about survival. It was about being chosen. But deep in the shadows, Nyx stood alone. Watching without a word, her eyes glowed softly, and her lips formed a faint smile. She had chosen him, but she wasn't the only one, and not everyone was going to play fair. Eli didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know who to trust, who to avoid, or who truly cared. But one thing was clear, the fight for him had only just begun. Something strange was happening. Eli could feel it in the air, like a quiet vibration running through the walls. The lights in the ceiling pulsed a soft pink, and the alien girls moved slower than usual. They spoke in whispers now, touching their stomachs without realizing it, and everywhere Eli walked, eyes followed him, not with curiosity anymore, but with something deeper, heavier. He stepped into the main chamber looking for Lyra, but instead, he found 5 of the alien girls sitting together on the round floor cushions. They were breathing in rhythm, their hands resting over their lower bellies, their eyes closed, faces calm, as if they were listening to something only they could hear. "What's going on?" Eli asked, feeling a tightness in his chest. None of them answered at first. Then the girl with the green eyes slowly opened hers and looked at him with a small smile. "It's beginning," she whispered. Eli stepped closer, unsure what she meant. "What's beginning?" he asked, but something inside already knew the answer. Before she could reply, one of the girls let out a soft gasp and grabbed her stomach. A glow, pale and golden, appeared under her skin, like a light pulsing from deep within. The others reached out to support her, whispering calming words in their language. Eli froze, staring in shock as the glow spread down her sides. "Wait, what is that?" he asked, his voice louder now. The girl opened her eyes, locked them with his, and said, "It's your child." The words hit him like a storm. "My what?" he said, backing up. "Your child is moving," she said again, more softly this time. Eli looked around the room, his heartbeat racing. 2 more girls had the same glow in their bellies. One of them was crying quietly, not from fear, but from joy. Another placed Eli's hand over her stomach, and he felt something shift under his palm. "It's real," she said. "You're our seed bearer." Eli pulled his hand away, overwhelmed. "I don't understand. I didn't do anything," he said, confused and panicked. "You were asleep," one girl said gently, "but your DNA was active. Our healers used it to awaken the cycle." Eli turned in a slow circle, staring at them one by one. "All of you?" he asked, his voice shaking. 7 girls nodded. One after the other, Eli sat down hard, feeling the weight of it crash onto his shoulders. "You made me a father while I was unconscious," he said, looking at Lyra, who had just entered the room. "Yes," she replied calmly. "It was necessary. You had no right," he said, standing again. "I understand your anger," she said. "But our people are fading, and we cannot wait for permission that might never come." Eli didn't know what to say. Anger, confusion, they all twisted inside him like a storm. He looked at the girls again, some smiling, some crying, but all of them looking at him like he was something sacred. He wanted to scream, to run, but something kept his feet still. Then a sudden alarm echoed through the halls. Red light flashed across the ceiling, and a deep voice spoke in their language. All the women stood up at once, some holding their stomachs protectively. Lyra turned to Eli, her eyes sharp. "They're here," she said. "Who?" Eli asked quickly. "Those who believe what we've done is a crime." Before he could ask more, the door opened, and the cloaked girl Nyx stepped in, her face calm, but her eyes burning. "They want to take the children," she said. "Even before they're born." Lyra gave orders fast, directing the pregnant girls to safe rooms underground. Nyx stayed by Eli's side, silent and cold. Eli followed them, feeling completely helpless. Not long ago, he was just a man floating through space, forgotten. Now he was the father of 7 unborn children, and a war was about to begin over them. He sat in the small underground room while the walls shook above. Nyx stood guard near the door, holding a silver spear that buzzed with energy. Eli looked at her and asked, "Why are you helping me?" She didn't turn her head, but she answered, "Because they are mine too." Eli stared at her, speechless. Nyx had never touched him, never sat close, never smiled. But now she stood like a shield between him and danger, and her voice had never sounded so human. Above them, the world was burning. Below them, life was beginning, and Eli understood. This was no longer just about him. He had become something more than he ever imagined. He had become their future. Blood trickled down his cheek as Jace stood with one arm holding the broken doorway. Smoke curled through the chamber like fingers trying to pull him back into the dark. His knees shook, his muscles burned, and his breath came in short, sharp gasps. But he didn't fall. Not yet. Behind him, the pregnant alien girls huddled in a protective circle, their eyes wide with fear. Some held weapons, some held hands, and some held nothing but their own trembling bellies. Jace turned slightly and forced a small, tired smile. "You're safe now," he said, though his voice cracked from exhaustion. But the words had barely left his lips when a cruel laugh echoed through the smoke. A shadow moved from the ruins of the cave wall, stepping over the wreckage with slow, deliberate steps. It wasn't a robot this time. It was something worse. The figure was tall, wrapped in metal armor etched with glowing red lines. Its face was half covered by a sleek black visor, and its voice was sharp like a blade. "You think you can stop us by punching machines?" it said. "You're a tool, not a warrior." Jace stared at the figure, his jaw clenched. "You don't belong here," he said. The figure chuckled, the sound inhuman and cold. "I built this place, Jace," it said, stepping closer. "And I built you." A sharp silence fell over the room. The alien girls looked at Jace with confusion, some with disbelief. Jace's body trembled, not from fear, but from memory. The voice unlocked something. A door in his mind that had stayed shut for too long. Pain, needles, data pads, screaming. His body on a table, his blood analyzed, his skin sliced and tested, and above him, always watching this voice, this man. "I was Project Zero," Jace whispered. "And you were the Overseer." The armored man removed his visor slowly, revealing a face that looked almost human, but the eyes were glassy. "Artificial dead." "Yes," the Overseer said. "You were the only subject who survived full hybrid bonding. You were meant to be the seed, the bridge, not the lover." He looked at the girls and sneered. "And yet here you are, playing house with failed breeding stock." One of the girls, Tali, stepped forward, her body shaking. "We're not failed," she said, her voice soft but strong. "We're alive, and we chose him." The Overseer raised one hand and pointed at her. In an instant, a beam of red light fired from his palm. Jace moved before thinking, throwing himself in front of Tali. The beam struck his shoulder, and he cried out. Falling to the ground, the room erupted. Kala launched herself into the air, slashing with her wing blades. Rin threw a burst of green flame, while Eva raised a protective shield around the others. But the Overseer didn't flinch. He fought like a machine, precise and merciless. Jace groaned on the floor, trying to move his arm. The burn had cut deep, but he could still feel his fingers. Tali knelt beside him, tears in her eyes. "You can't protect us all," she whispered. "Not alone." Her words struck something deep in him. He looked around and saw the fear in the others' faces. The strength they tried to show, but also the limits they couldn't ignore. He had been trying to carry everything, to shield them from all pain, but maybe they didn't need a shield. Maybe they needed a leader. Jace pulled himself to his feet, blood running down his arm. He grabbed the metal staff from the ground and shouted, "Fall back to the crystal chamber." The girls hesitated, unsure if they should leave him. "Now," he barked, voice sharp and commanding. "We fight together, or we die alone." They moved fast and smooth, retreating deeper into the underground structure. Jace faced the Overseer once more. "You made me," he said, "but you don't own me." The Overseer's eyes narrowed. "Then let's see if you were worth the investment." Their clash shook the stone walls, sparks flying from every strike. It wasn't elegance, it was fury, raw and wild. Jace bled, groaned, fought with everything he had. But the Overseer was stronger, faster, colder. Still, Jace didn't stop, because behind him were lives worth more than his. And in front of him was the past he had to destroy. Just when it seemed the Overseer would land the final blow, a flash of white light exploded behind him. A silent figure stepped from the shadows, her cloak swirling like smoke. Nyx, without a word, she struck her spear, piercing the Overseer's side with a scream of twisting metal. The Overseer stumbled, shocked. "You!" he growled. "Don't touch what's mine," Nyx said, her voice like ice. Jace fell to one knee, gasping. The battle wasn't over, but they had bought time, and now he wasn't alone. He lay still, not because he was weak, but because he couldn't believe he was alive. Jace opened one eye and saw dust floating in the air like golden snow. The last strike should have killed him. It didn't, because she had stepped between him and the blade. Her body now lay across his legs, warm but unmoving. It was Ivra, the quietest one. The one who always stayed close but never asked for much. Her hands had glowed with healing light, but her shield had shattered too soon. Blood ran from her side, pooling on the stone floor like spilled promise. Jace gritted his teeth and touched her shoulder gently. Her eyes fluttered, and she gave him the smallest smile. "You're not allowed to die," he whispered, voice shaking. "You still owe me answers." She exhaled softly, then closed her eyes again. The chamber had gone quiet after the Overseer retreated. His wounds were deep, but he had escaped, vowing to return with more than machines. Now Jace and the others sat in a circle, their backs against the crystal wall. No one spoke for a long time, until Rin finally broke the silence, her voice small and full of pain. "You can't keep saving all of us," she said. "You'll die trying." Jace looked at her, then at the others. Nyx sat in the corner, her face blank, her spear stained with dark oil. Kella's wings were torn, her breathing rough. Even Tali, always brave, sat with her arms wrapped around her belly, silent and distant. He had tried to protect them, tried to be everything: guardian, leader, partner. But the truth settled on him now like cold metal. He wasn't enough, not alone, and not a god. Jace finally said, "I can't stop every weapon, fight every battle, fix every wound. And yet," Nyx said quietly, "you keep trying." Rin stood slowly, placing one hand over her swollen stomach. "We weren't supposed to feel anything," she said. "We were bred for purpose, paired by order. But with you, it was different. You looked at us like we mattered. Not just our bodies, but our hearts." Jace stared at her, surprised. "I didn't know what I was walking into," he said. "I didn't know what any of this was supposed to be. But you're right, I do care. I care too much sometimes." Kella limped over, sat beside him, and gently leaned her head on his shoulder. "You weren't just chosen to make children," she said. "You were chosen to remind us how to live." One by one, the others joined them, sitting close, surrounding him with warmth and quiet support. It wasn't passion that held them together now. It was something deeper, something earned. They had bled together, survived together, protected each other in ways no machine or plan ever predicted. Even Nyx finally stepped forward. Kneeling before him, "I don't share," she said simply. "But for this, I will." Then she took his hand, her cold fingers slowly curling around his own. Not as a weapon, but as a woman. Jace felt something shift inside him. Not just emotion, but purpose. This wasn't about being a breeder anymore. This was about building something from the ashes: family, freedom, maybe even a future. But their peace didn't last long. A soft beep echoed from deep within the walls, followed by a flicker of blue light. The communication crystal had activated. Tali rushed to it, and the crystal projected a small image in the air, fuzzy, broken, and then clear. A woman appeared, tall, glowing, with eyes that shimmered like stars. Her voice was soft but sharp. "Jace Corin," she said. "You may not remember me, but I remember you. The girls looked at each other. Confused, Jace stood, his fists clenched. He knew that voice. Even after all this time, I was the first. The woman continued, her hand resting on her own. Rounded stomach. You saved all of them, but you left me behind. Rin gasped. Kella stepped back. She's carrying your child too? Jace didn't answer, because deep inside he already knew the truth. Before the rebellion, before the crash, there had been another. A woman bred to be perfect. Loyal, powerful. But something went wrong. She loved him too much, and he feared what she would become, so he ran. Now she had returned. And she wasn't alone. Behind her, shadows moved an army of hybrids, children like his, born for war. The crystal blinked off, and silence fell once more. Jace looked at the others, pain in his eyes. She was the beginning, he said quietly. But you're my choice. They didn't speak. They didn't need to, because war was coming again. But this time, he wasn't just a weapon. He was a father, a partner, and something he never expected. Loved. The sand shifted beneath Jace's boots as he stepped on a stone that wasn't there the day before. It didn't sink, it clicked. He froze, eyes narrowing. That wasn't nature, that was design. He knelt and swept the sand away, revealing a metal plate marked with old alien symbols. It was smooth and ancient, but his fingers felt a pulse under the surface. Like a heartbeat, the fifth girl watched from a distance, her eyes wide. That symbol, she whispered. That's the crest of the seated one. Before Jace could ask what that meant, the ground trembled slightly, not enough to break anything. Just enough to be felt deep in the spine. Then, the plate lit up and slid open, revealing a staircase going down hidden beneath his shelter all this time. No one spoke as he stepped down first, holding a torch in one hand, rifle in the other. The air inside was warm, too warm. It smelled like stone, like power, like memory. The walls below were carved with glowing lines, drawings of humans and aliens standing side by side. Images of women with glowing wounds, of children with stars in their eyes. And at the center of every panel, there was one face repeated over and over. A human man with kind eyes, standing with his arms around a circle of alien women. Jace touched the image and felt a jolt through his arm. Not pain, but recognition. The fifth girl touched her belly and whispered, "This is not just coincidence." At the end of the chamber, a round stone pulsed softly. Jace stepped close and placed his hand on it without knowing why. The stone sank inward, and the chamber responded with a soft hum. From above, the other girls slowly entered, drawn by something they didn't understand. They stood around him in silence, watching as the room lit with a faint golden glow. Then, symbols began to float in the air. Old script. None of them could read, but they didn't have to. The baby in the mother's arms opened its glowing eyes and began to speak, not in words from one world, but in a voice that echoed in every mind present. "You are the bridge, the blood, the balance," the baby said calmly. "You were chosen not by destiny, but by decision." Jace's heart pounded, but he didn't move. He listened, because deep down, something inside him already believed. "The mothers carry the future," the baby continued. "And you carry the reason they will not be hunted again." The girls began to understand. Each of them had fled horror, slavery, pain. But they were not just survivors. They were part of something older. Something written in stone before they were ever born. Jace looked at the glowing child and asked, "Why, Emmy?" The baby blinked slowly. "Because you protect without price." In that moment, the fifth girl knelt beside him and placed his hand on her stomach. "This life inside me," she said gently, "would not exist if not for you." The others did the same, one by one, not in worship, not in weakness, but in shared understanding. They weren't giving him thanks, they were giving him trust. When they finally left the chamber, the sky above looked different, brighter, as if the stars had moved just slightly closer. Jace didn't say much that night. He simply sat with the women beside the fire. A quiet circle of life he stared at. Their faces different species, different worlds, different scars, and saw one truth in all of them. They hadn't come to him for shelter. They had come to him for something far deeper, and now they had found it. Asterisk. Asterisk. The morning sky shimmered like water, as if the sun had touched something ancient in the air. It wasn't just light, it felt like change. The sand around Jace's shelter was no longer empty. Footprints now covered the ground. Too many to count, and yet there was peace. More had come during the night. Not just girls, but families, elders, even a healer who claimed to follow the dream of the human with the quiet heart. They brought stories, hope, and children not yet born. And every one of them looked at Jace with eyes that held the same question: was the legend true? Jace didn't call himself anything. He didn't lead with speeches or banners. He simply kept building, fixing, sharing food, and holding trembling hands. But the circle around him had grown. The baby who had first spoken now sat upright, glowing. Faintly, it didn't cry, it didn't scream, it watched, listened, and sometimes whispered words that echoed in the air, words that made old warriors drop to one knee and made mothers smile through tears. One afternoon, a massive ship landed in the distance, but this one was not silent, not threatening. It carried banners of peace symbols from different systems. From its ramp walked diplomats, priests, and one figure in golden armor who removed her helmet and bowed low before Jace. "We've come to listen," she said. "The council is ready to hear Earth's voice." Jace looked behind him at the girls. No, the women who had trusted him when the galaxy had turned away from them. They had stood by him in fear, in pain, in fire, and in mystery. Now they stood tall beside him, their bellies full of the future. He stepped forward, not for power, but for them, and for the unborn children whose lives would not begin in chains. Inside the great hall aboard the ship, the council listened to his voice. He spoke slowly, using simple words that traveled deeper than politics. "I didn't ask for any of this," he said, "but I couldn't turn my back on it. Their strength is not in war," he continued. "It's in how they still believe in something better, even after everything was taken from them." Silence filled the chamber, and one by one, heads bowed, not in defeat, but in respect. When he returned, the women were waiting. One touched her growing belly and smiled. Another leaned on his shoulder and whispered, "You didn't just give us safety. You gave us something to believe in." That night, beneath a sky full of stars and stories yet to be told, the children inside them kicked for the first time in unison. Like they too were listening, Jace stood outside the shelter, no longer just a man in the desert. He was the beginning of something new. Not a warrior, not a king, but a heart strong enough to carry many, and around him, the women who had once arrived one by one, now stood as one, their harem of hope, their protector of peace, their human.